There is a new documentary uncovering the untold story of one of Georgia's most recognizable places. About 4 million people visit Stone Mountain each year. It is home to the world's largest Confederate monument. A new documentary from the Atlanta History Center hopes to inform future conversations about it. We're so glad the executive producer, Kristian Weatherspoon, is with us. Thank you for coming in to talk about this. So the film's called The Monument, the untold story of Stone Mountain. So much, most people don't know about it. What stood out to you in your extensive research?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a project that's been 2 years in the making for the Atlanta History Center. Actually, even longer than that. We've been doing research around Stone Mountain since 2016. And so it started with a white paper that really worked to lay out the full history of Stone Mountain. And, 2 years ago, we decided that it was important for us to really put this information in a format that was digestible for people to really have access to. And that's the reason that we chose the medium of film. But really specifically, we think there are so many points of surprise within this film, within this project. For example, the fact that the successful carving effort was restarted by a segregationist governor, Marvin Griffin, 57 days after the Brown versus Board of Education ruling. Within the film, you hear from Marvin Griffin, about how he thought and how he saw this, issue. And we think that's really important for Georgians to hear.
Besides being a Confederate memorial, it was also the place where the rebirth of the Ku Klux Klan came about.
Little children, along with 3,000 roved Klansmen and their women auxiliaries, gather in Georgia, where the society was founded, to initiate into their ranks 700 new members.
Even the fact that the carving was not finished until 1972. I think many think that, this was something that may have been done in the early 1900s. Well, it wasn't. And, that connection between kind of the finishing, the restarting and the finishing of the carving and the civil rights movement and how the fact that there were many who thought and saw many of the ideals of the Confederacy as appropriate symbols to represent the state. So that for us was a really those points were really important for us to bring out and to highlight. We think that as a history center and as a museum, moving forward in the 21st century, it's our responsibility to help provide context to conversations that we know are happening within communities.
Sure. And the timeline does provide such important context because, as you're saying, that even the idea for the carving was sort of a rallying point for those who were really fighting to keep segregation. And it was very specific to carve it in granite, something that was massive and immovable.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, those are really important points. The goal for this film was to really help people understand, again, what this historical timeline is. We're talking about a 60-year period of time from 1914 to 1972, which is a massive amount of time. The effort was started and stopped and restarted, a few times. But again, making that historical connection was really important. And I think it was also really important for us as a history center and in the process of making this film to really help viewers understand how this issue impacts people who deal with the carving each and every day. This is something that we just can't relegate to just a carving, but all of the things that grow out of the carving, race, ideology, symbolism, dialogue, all of those are issues that the carving touches. And so for us, it was really important to wrap personal stories and narrative stories around this historical timeline to help tell the story.
I thought you did such a great job of sharing those stories because you hear from people who say, well, it's a place I hike and it's a park. Others who say, I can't picnic casually just under this kind of symbolism. And then you also hear from the carver's daughter, which is an interesting and a perspective I'd never heard before.
Yeah, absolutely. Donna's able to talk to us really specifically about her experience with her father during the carving effort, the final carving effort. And we thought that was so important because, again, one goal for this was, we'd hope that when people watch the film, they may see their perspective, but maybe they see a perspective they haven't heard or thought about before. And so we were well aware that Donna's story was one, the carver's daughter was a story that maybe had not widely been heard. So we wanted to give voice to that. And I think she so importantly articulates how, many Georgians feel. And, as do, the rest of the interviewees in the documentary.
Well, someone else that you interviewed was former Governor Roy Barnes. And of course, notably, he was governor who fought to get the Confederate symbol removed from the state flag, lost a re-election bid because of that. His perspective very interesting as he looks through a political lens and an issue that still is very political across much of the South.
Yeah, and the film touches on the idea that this is, at the end of the day, still a legislative issue, which is why Governor Barnes' voice was so incredibly important to helping to tell the story and to help viewers understand, again, how that symbolism was used to uphold, ideals that, many in Georgia, don't agree with, honestly. And so for us, again, it was a real exercise in, again, exploring several different perspectives. So again, no matter what side of this issue, you may fall on, our goal was to really help spur conversation. And that is what we hope that this piece is able to do and this film is able to do.
And informed conversation. Because I think it's such deeply researched content that really helps you see a big picture. So it changes the conversation in a way because it gives insight that maybe someone has never had about it. You talked about sort of the legislative perspective, and you close the film by reading the Georgia state law.
And shall be preserved and protected for all time as a tribute to the bravery and heroism of the citizens of this state who suffered and died in their cause.
And this is a point I feel like many people don't realize, that Stone Mountain and the Confederate Monument is protected under Georgia state law currently.
It is protected under state law. It's codified in state law. And the entire park is designated as a Confederate memorial. And we thought that those points were really important for us to explore because, again, to your point about having these informed conversations, we all have to start from the same set of facts. And so that is what we hope, again, that this film is able to do, is to help provide that set of facts that we can all start from to have this informed conversation. And yes, we know that ultimately, again, it is a legislative issue, but ultimately it is an issue that's up to the citizens of Georgia. And we want to, again, be able to provide that body of content and have all of that history in one place for both legislators and citizens of Georgia.
Years of research, hundreds of conversations, the things that didn't make it into the film, what stands out to you as you were living and breathing this for so long?
Absolutely. Again, so much that we could not include in the film. Each of the sections in the film could have been, a documentary on their own. But again, the idea that, we really wanted to have the opportunity to explore the role of women in the United Daughters of the Confederacy and how they were so instrumental in kind of perpetuating this lost cause mythology that the film explores. And the idea that it was not only meant to work through monuments, it was meant to permeate educational systems in several spaces in our society. Just that effort. And again, just the idea that we really wanted to help people to really understand how we got here. Cynthia hits on it in part of our interview that wasn't able to be part of the documentary. She talks a lot about talking to her students at Spelman about this issue. And one thing she says is that there is such a thirst for students wanting to know, how do we get here? How did we begin to argue about these issues, and how do we begin to become such a polarized society? And the film explores that. These are issues that we've always dealt with in the country and in Georgia. And so, having the opportunity to explore that more. But in recognition of that, we've created a webpage, atlantahistorycenter.com/monument, that allows viewers to, after they come out of the film, to explore a body of resources, blog posts, additional video content, educational resources are all coming soon to that page to help us be able to explore some of the issues we weren't able to dig into in the film.
As you were talking, I thought that's so interesting, right? Unless we know how we got here, how can we make an informed decision about whether we stay here? as things currently are.
Absolutely.
And it is an ongoing conversation in the state of Georgia, in the South, around the country, and an important one.
Absolutely.
And we really appreciate the time and effort and energy that you all put into this film. I really encourage everyone to watch it. It's free, everyone can access it, and we'll make sure that we're providing a link for you to that. Kristian Weatherspoon, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your work and the time to talk about it today.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
I appreciate
it.
All right.
History of the Civil War and the way it's been remembered has always been a part of the way we have fought over race and equality in this country, and it remains so today.
For 160 years, the narrative has been the white narrative of the Civil War.
Every day the sun comes up over that mountain, the state is declaring it a monument to the Confederacy.
That's historical. That Confederate memorial will be there because the people back in those days who cared enough about their families wanted to honor them.
I think that if we want to create a world that is actually accepting, you would understand why that's unacceptable.
Sure, there's good, bad, and ugly in every story. We just need to continue to focus on the good and not the bad.
Now, you can make a lot of good, credible arguments for a lot of different solutions for Stone Mountain, but any of those absolutely comes with the obligation to have a honest historical reckoning with how that monument got there and what it represents.
And until we use historic places to foster truth, education, reconciliation, and healing, then we are not harnessing the full power of our historic built environment, the power of art, and what it communicates about who we once were, but also who we are in the present and who we want to be in the future.